Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. Well, we're looking at Revelations chapter 18. We see here political, economic Babylon that Antichrist is set up to rule the world. The last 3.5 years of the tribulation is going to be destroyed at the very end of the tribulation. And that's what's being described here in chapter 18. Now, already we talked about the first 4 verses, or actually 3 verses, where we see the condemnation, the judgment, the voice of judgment that is proclaimed, because the angel from heaven with great authority cries mightily with a loud voice, Babylon the great is fallen, is fallen. And then now in verse 4 through verse 8, we see the voice of separation, a cry to the believers that are there in this time of Babylon in the last 3.5 years. Yet a great message and application for all of us today. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out from her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues." So the first thing we see here, the reason God says for his people to come out of this Babylon, this system of pleasure and luxury, is that they would not share in her sins. God wants his people to be separate. "Come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and do not touch the unclean thing." 1 Corinthians chapter 6, we read that. Now, we also read another reason, lest you receive of her plagues. Lest you receive of her plagues. God was going to judge specific sins for these people. "For her sins have reached to heaven," verse 5, "and God has remembered her iniquities." And he's going to render to her just as she rendered to you, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed double for her. And so God would be judging Babylon for specific sins. Now, there are already evil influences of the nations. She's called the nations of the earth to commit fornication with her. She had seduced them with idolatry, and we talked about that a little bit already. And that was, of course, worshiping the Antichrist himself rather than worshiping the true God of heaven. Another sin that will be judged is pride. In verse 7, "She hath glorified herself." She saw herself as a queen who could never be dethroned, and this false confidence and pride would never be accepted by the Lord. Remember, that's the reason Satan got kicked out of heaven. That's the reason Eve partook of the fruit. She was told, you would be like God. If you eat of this fruit, you'll be wise, and you can make up your own mind. You can do your own thing. Well, my friend, that's still a major issue today if we're not careful. The pride of our hearts deceive us, and we think we are sitting on the throne and nothing will ever take us down. But my friend, God says it will happen. The third sin is Babylon's worship of pleasures and luxury. She lived deliciously, or she lived luxuriously, and to live proudly in the luxury while others are going without. It means to make possessions and pleasures the most important things in life and ignore the needs even of others. And John summarized this in 1 John chapter 2, verse 16. "The pride of life, the lust of the eyes, and the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life, these are of the world, and they are not of God." Oh, my friend, so God's people must not delay in separating themselves from this evil system. "Come out of her, my people, and therefore her plagues will come upon her in one day, death and mourning and famine." Now, sometimes God's judgments come like a moth. They come slowly and over a period of time, but other times, like on 9/11, possibly, when our economic system of America and the world was shocked when those planes flew into the Twin Towers in New York City. Matter of fact, some people even related this passage to that event in 9/11. But I'm telling you, there is a coming a day when economic Babylon in 1 hour, 1 day will be destroyed, and it'll fall to nothing because God will bring it down because of her sins, and God will repay her double. Well, God bless, and We'll be continuing through this chapter in the next few days, and you now have a wonderful, wonderful day.